because it was very male dominated. This trading happening, and all the big honchos they're all men, right? And I was in my mid-20s then, 25 or something like that. So probably in their eyes, who is this young girl talking to me, trying to do business with me? I was really fascinated by the fact that kids here could learn Chinese, Japanese, German, French. We just didn't have that back in Mexico. It was, I guess, English. You would learn English. So I was like, wow, this is incredible. So when I started high school, I decided to do the three. So try this exercise now. So just frown and, feel sad, how your body feels. And then try the opposite, just a little smile. And you just feel differently instantaneously. Even if you're having the shittiest day, that changes everything.
G'day and welcome to Global Horizons. I'm your host, Rob Malicki, coming to you today from Garigal Land in Sydney. And I'm super excited today to be joined by an old friend, industry legend, Guie Hartney, up in Queensland.
Hi, Rob. Greetings, everyone, from Southeast Queensland, from Springfield, very close to Brisbane, the future Olympic city.
It is the future Olympic city. And actually, maybe that's a good place for us to start, because this morning you're wearing a badge on your jacket that says, "Embrace the chaos." Tell me about that, yeah.
Well, embrace the chaos. Look, this is a badge that was given to me by a dear friend in Canberra, and it has lots of meanings. And it tends to be my favorite one to wear. It's almost like it gives me a superpower that, whatever comes today, it'll be fine. I'll embrace it and go with the flow. And I try to do that, especially in these last few years. I've been doing a lot of that. Needless to say, it's been a challenging time for all of us in international ed in Australia and worldwide. So I think it's a good motto to have every morning when I wake up. I think just embrace it. It'll be fine.
How do you stay zen because it has been just the craziest couple of years, hasn't it? So how do you remain zen when all of this stuff comes flying at us from left and right?
Look, I have to say that maybe 5 or so years ago I would have been extremely stressed out. But look, after a personal journey that I've had over the last few years with my partner, who was quite sick. She's fine now, but she was quite sick for a while. After traveling through all of that with her, the work stuff just doesn't really faze me as it would have a few years ago. And that's something that I've learned these few years, when the most important things to you come into a very precarious situation, then everything else just becomes, easy to deal with. But also, one of my colleagues told me, "Yeah, you always seem to be kind of relaxed and smiling. It's going to be okay." And that's because many years ago, someone told me about the power of the smile, right? So you can be feeling crap, and angry or upset, but just the lifting of that corner of your mouth just changes energetically every cell in your body. It's incredible. So I try and do that. And that's how I deal with it, Rob.
You know what's crazy? I'm so glad that you just mentioned that. This morning I woke up, I was super stressed, and I went out for a walk with my dog in the sunshine. And sometimes it's just the sunshine on your face is enough to kind of reground you where you are. And I was literally just thinking about how important it is just to remember to smile, because it literally our brain follows our body, doesn't it?
It does. And look, try this exercise now. So just frown and feel sad, how your body feels, and then try the opposite, just a little smile, and you just feel differently instantaneously. Even if you're having the shittiest day, that changes everything.
It's funny.
So wine or a cold beer, depending on time of day, can also be good sometimes.
It can also help. It's funny though, when you tell me to frown, I'm like, oh, this doesn't come naturally to me. But it's so true, isn't it? It's like the smiling is a habit, isn't it?
It's a habit. Yeah, it's a habit. Yeah, a good one.
I remember so when we did our big trip around Australia for a couple of years, we pulled into like far north Queensland, this little town called Atherton, and I went into the tourist information booth there, and the lady there had this, one of those, like,
what do you want?
Downward faces. And I remember walking in and just thinking, oh my God, like she looks like she wants to stab me in the eye. And her job is basically to help tourists.
Right.
The that was the moment where I suddenly realized that this was a choice. Did I want to be that person when I was in my 70s that had the mouth like that? Or did I want to be the person, with the twinkles?
All the
Uh,
twinkles, yes.
what about for you then? I mean, was it a confronting situation that made you want to be one of the smilers in the world?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it happened a bit before, but I think this just really drove it home for me, what's really important, and all the things that would keep me up at night that were work related in the past then became very simple, petty things for me to worry about. By no means were they not important. It just meant that I was in a better headspace to actually manage them properly, without bringing stress into it.
So does it literally not stress you anymore? Or it's just that you're able to contextualize?
I able to contextualize it better, and it's not that I don't get stressed. I mean, I do, and there is healthy stress. You need a bit of stress also to make decisions, right? Just means that I don't really get it to a point that is unhealthy, and I lose sleep, and I have my palpitations and get angry or anything like that. It just means that I'm more calm about it, and I think as a result, I think my peers and my staff are better for it. I hope they are. I hope they feel.
Yeah, absolutely. I've always gotten that awesome vibe from you. So I think I've known you we've known each other predate that situation you're talking about. But you've always seemed like a sort of cheery, happy, bubbly person to me.
Oh, thank you, Rob. Yeah, no, I have my moments, but no, I do try to maintain that inner sunshine. What's that quote from Camus? Is it darkness or depths of winter? Within me lies an invincible summer, or something like that. And that's a really nice one, I think, to keep reminding oneself of. Yeah, I've got the summer inside me. It's fine. It's fine.
I've just Googled it. In the depth of winter, I finally learned that within me there lay
It's
an invincible summer.
That's it.
Wow, that's beautiful.
It's beautiful.
Are you a quote person? Are you one of those people that kind of like likes to read that stuff and collect them?
Sure, not really, but there's some that have certainly resonated with me. Like my mom actually introduced me to that one when I was a kid in Mexico, and I actually learned it first in Spanish.
Oh, really? How do you say it in Spanish? Do you remember?
It was en la tempestad del invierno, sé que dentro de mí hay un verano invencible.
Oh, it's beautiful. It sounds even better in Spanish than in English. Because Camus was French from memory, so it would have been a Latin language.
Should I?
So it feels better to me. It's got the ring, that kind of magical ring of
That's
music.
right. Yeah, that's good.
The languages. So we started off by talking about your chaos badge. Do you have other badges then? Are you a badge
I've
person?
got one that I also like. It's a red chili. Then one of my staff gave me that, and which I think it resonates with me as well. And another one that I love, it's actually one of the Little Prince, and that's a really cool one. And I do things with my hair, Rob. Right now it's kind of longish. I've got it back, but I've had it short, really long, and different colors. But for a while there, I had a bit of a Little Prince thing happening. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to wear the Little Prince because, I'm going to be the Little Prince today.
It's just in your heart.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. I'm just gonna show you this. So that's what I'm wearing later. So you
Oh,
probably can't see.
can't quite see it.
It's a Scout Australia badge. So
Oh,
just you're talking
fantastic.
about badges. I'm just like, you're a badge person.
Yes, love my badges.
Yeah, this is recent for me. Because of course I have my hat. Everyone recognizes the hat.
Yes.
But I remember reading this thing. Where was it? I can't remember where I picked it up. But they were saying it was about interviews and when you're meeting people, and they say you should always wear something that's distinctively you. It could be a badge, it could be a bangle, it could be
Okay. Yeah.
some sort of accessory that when you walk into like a networking function or when you come to work, people see it. They call it a what's it. You should always wear a what's it because it becomes like almost like a little bit of a talking point. It sort of surprises and delights people and just kind of puts people at ease because they say, "Oh, what's that little thing that you're wearing today?"
Yeah.
I think that's quite a cool little technique
Good point.
actually. If you're, you know,
Absolutely.
I'm a little bit of an
I agree with
introvert
that.
in life. Yeah, yeah, it's true, isn't it? So what are some of your? So you've got the chili badge. Are there any other favourites that you have?
I've got a cassette player. I've got some kind of Mexican, figurines, pre-Columbian type figurines as well. I've got a sword, a few bits and pieces. Yeah. Depends on how I feel, I put them on. And of course, I've got my UniSQ badge as well, which I might actually wear because I've got a delegation coming in from Shanghai later today.
And just before we started recording, you were saying, so you've just been in China too.
Yes, I was there for 2 weeks with some of my colleagues to visit partners and attend some of the China Scholarship Council events. So no, it was fantastic, and I hadn't been back for quite a few years actually, and it was great to be there. But also quite starting to see the difference in some of the cities that I'd been to before, like Beijing, for instance. You know, when I was first there was back in 1998, I think it was, and at the time all the cities were just oceans of these bicycles everywhere, right? But now, not a bike in sight. So there's a lot of electric bikes, but lots of motorbikes and cars, and that was kind of like, oh. I do miss the old Beijing, for example. And, so much development and quite incredible. But, I do miss some of the aspects of the older version of some of those cities, for sure.
Where's the most interesting place that you've been to? Could be from work or could just be for play.
One of the most interesting ones. Oh, well, there's been a few, I guess. But perhaps for me, one of the more interesting ones has been Mongolia. And this was through a backpacking trip I did after I finished my bachelor degree studies at Griffith. So I pretty much backed up for about 2-3 years. And Mongolia was part of this Trans-Mongolian trip I did from China, Mongolia, and Siberia, across to Moscow eventually. And it was fascinating because I saw the desert, and the Gobi was spectacular, but also Ulaanbaatar, and at the time, this kind of Soviet-looking city, but really interesting people, and I got to eat mutton every day. But also, having a look at all the different lifestyles outside of Ulaanbaatar. And my dream, I haven't done it yet, was to actually return to Mongolia and spend about 6 months with a family and moving with the horses and the sheep through the seasons, staying in the yurts and going on horseback. And I haven't quite gotten back there yet, but my parents just returned from Mongolia about 3 or 4 weeks ago and kind of did just that. So I'm like, what? You're living my dream.
They've stolen your dream.
Stolen it. But yeah, Mongolia, for me, definitely quite a fascinating place that I'd love to be back.
And why? Like, why Mongolia? Why Siberia? I mean, these are kind of remote.
So remote. I mean, it's so harsh. You wonder how on earth people deal with that, right? Under those harsh conditions. But I think Mongolians, I mean, you just look at them and they're just come across as such jolly people as well. They're hardy people. They've got a big smile on their faces. And it's a different kind of energy to what you might see elsewhere. And I find that a little bit with Latin America as well. People are living in harsh conditions. It's tough. But there's a lot of joy at the same time. A lot of jolliness and happiness. And that's the kind of culture that I'm really attracted to, I suppose. Not that severe, serious, life is tough kind of attitude. Yeah. And the Mongolians had that for me. So jolly. It's cold. We're here in the desert. There's nothing much. The wind, goodness sakes. We'll eat mutton for the next few months. That's okay. I'm going to have a good time.
How did you even decide to go there, though? I mean, I'm just thinking, like, when I finished my uni degree, I couldn't have even, I probably could have pointed to it on a map, but it certainly wouldn't have been in my psyche to actually go and explore a place like that.
Well, look, the key thing around this trip was actually something that my parents did in the early 70s. So my mom's Mexican, my dad's Australian. They met in the Middle East. And so since I was a kid, I heard about all their adventures, and they were, big hippie backpackers, and they did it for years. And they met in a moshav and then eventually did the kibbutz thing, which was the thing to do during that time, right? So I thought, okay, when I'm able to, I'm also going to do my own adventure, my backpacking adventure, and I'll also go to a kibbutz, as mom and dad did, and see what the fuss is about. And so that was kind of the center of my whole plan, to eventually get to Israel and do a kibbutz stint at the time. So I decided, how am I going to get there? So I traveled with a girlfriend from uni who had been studying Thai. And so she got us jobs as English teachers in Bangkok. So we talked for a while, for a few months, eventually made our way to Laos, stayed in Laos for a while, crossed the border into China, back of a pickup truck, the Yunnan province, only foreigners there, and busted. We spent about 2 months or so in China in really interesting conditions, I have to say, but fascinating. And we thought, well,
So can you put some meat on the bones of that? You say fascinating, and you're
well,
laughing. I'm like, there's a story there. Give me a story. Give me the story.
China, right? In the buses, you would stop in the middle of nowhere. There's no bathrooms, and all it is, it's just a trench on the ground that's dug out, and everybody just does their business in front of each other, right? So it's like a conga line with the trench in between your legs, and that was really obviously confronting. And it's even worse when you're actually traveling with someone right? But you just have to deal with it. And after a while, it wasn't an issue, but it was a big deal for these two non-Chinese girls, for sure. And my friend was blonde, so she attracted a lot of attention, right? And this story, I think, has happened to a lot of people. People just staring at you while you're having your most private moment. So we had a lot of that throughout the trip. In one instance in Xi'an, we were traveling from Xi'an to Kaifeng, and as we were leaving the city, the whole side of the bus that we were sitting on just fell. And so that was like, oh my God, we all got off the bus and we're like, okay, we have to figure out what we're going to do. We have to get some other transport. But two guys proceeded to just put it back together. I kid you not, masking tape, all of it. Everybody got on the bus. And then so we decided to get back on as well, except we swapped sides and we made it fine.
So when you say the side of the bus
Fell,
like
just
the wall fell off.
fell to the side. I know. I mean, in retrospect, we shouldn't have gotten back on that bus, but hey, you're young and it was
And
okay.
you don't have a choice though, right? Isn't this funny? Like the things that you do in retrospect, you're like, I can't believe we actually did that. That was nuts.
Yeah, so that China was incredible, and that I think, in spite of all of the travel I've done, I think that was really my proper first eye opener of a place. Confronting, different, hard. Yeah.
After you've been to somewhere like, I'm just thinking about my first travel experiences solo, which were like
Mm.
England, okay?
Yeah.
And like, yeah, you can have culture shock and it's different when you're there going there as a 20-something-year-old by yourself for the first time. But the level of difference is nowhere near compared to what you're describing there. Do you think that's given you some level of defense against, the vast shock that we can have when we're traveling the world? Like that being that first transformative experience being so different, does that almost immunize you in some way against
Oh,
other things?
I think so. Definitely. I often think about that actually. And I also attribute it to where I grew up to, in southern Mexico. So I was born there, and it's a place called Juchitan. And it's still very much an indigenous region of Mexico where our native Zapotec is still spoken. That's my mother's first language. And so I grew up in this environment where, we only had a couple of paved streets. We still had, dirt roads and donkeys and pigs, swimming on the streets that were, full of mud and horse-ridden carriages, that kind of atmosphere that was just, for me as a kid, magical. It was fantastic. And, having grown up in that and with two parents who are, pretty out there or have always been, I think definitely immunized me for these kinds of experiences, and my brother as well. And actually learned to walk on a plane, because mom and dad
Stop.
just
Really?
took me everywhere on their backs. I've been traveling since I was a baby. Yeah, my first steps were actually on the air, up in the air.
That is super cool. There's not many people that could claim that.
Right?
Yeah,
Claiming it. I'm claiming it.
you're claiming it. Does part of you crave that simplicity, the simplicity of that life? Like it's a rugged and it can be hard, but there's also something pure and simple about it, right?
Yeah, I think that's probably why, and lots of people must feel this. I like now, in my slightly older age, my creature comforts. I do like my hotels with my fluffy slippers and my robe when it's possible. But when I truly want to have a proper rest, my wife and I go camping. We go camping and completely disconnect. And I just love the simplicity of having to worry about just shelter and food, right? And that's it. I love it. Absolutely love it.
Where do you go? Where's your favorite camping spot?
Oh, well,
So, and so
there's
for
lots
those people who don't know, you're in southeast Queensland,
Yeah, we're
Toowoomba.
Yeah, it's all
And
Southeast Queensland. There's a few beautiful places actually in northern New South Wales that I love, just near that Morwillumba area there, Byron. And we did a beautiful trip from Sydney to Brisbane to visit my family when I was still living in Sydney. And we took a route where we went inland and camped along the banks of many creeks and then did the coastal thing and then back inland and then back to the coast. And that took us about 2.5 weeks. So we just, kind of took our time. Nothing like that epic trip you did around Australia, but this was, a little break for us. That was just pure magic.
I was just writing this article this morning about off LinkedIn about you've got to take the time, don't you? Life is always screaming at us, particularly once you get far enough into career and you've got responsibility and you're building things and you've got a team. I mean, we could literally just do nothing but work 24/7 if we really wanted to. But if you don't take that time, then you don't get these moments, do you?
You don't, and then you burn out, and then you're a crap colleague, a crap boss, a crap wife. It's not worth it.
Where are your parents now?
Well, they're actually in Brisbane. So when they decided to return to Australia, so to speak, or my dad anyway, I was just finishing primary schooling in Mexico, and they thought that it was the perfect age for my brother and I to be in Australia in the lead up to high school and all of that. So we made the move back in 1989, and Melbourne, which is where my dad's from, was just too cold for the little Mexicans, and Sydney was too big. Perth, which mom and dad were really considering, was too far for the business they had in mind. And so Brisbane it was. It kind of met all the right things that they were looking for. So not too big and good weather and on the East Coast. So we've always been Brisbaneites from the Australian side, and mom and dad are here. Yeah.
What was the business that they were looking to
Oh,
sell?
well, it's still in place, our family business. We or they wholesale Mexican art and craft in Australia and New Zealand. So it's about almost 40 years, that business now, 40 years old. And it's wonderful. Mom and dad work with individual artisan families in Mexico, and then they bring containers of all the beautiful things that they create into Australia, and they provide these beautiful things to specialty shops, gift shops, and so on in Australia. And that's been going on for quite a while. And it's just a beautiful business. It's a way to give back to Mexico as well. And over the years, it allowed my mom particularly to be back in Mexico a couple times a year and see my nana and all the family there as well. So it worked for two distinct purposes. It was, and it's still going today. They haven't retired. They just absolutely love it.
You know what would be hard about that business, I reckon, is when you find these beautiful things that are like from your home, and you take them to the other side of the world. I think parting with those must be really hard.
Oh, yeah.
No? Like they just must have a garage full of stuff that they're like, I can't part with this.
That is true. That is true. Yeah, no, they're beautiful things. And I mean, it's just wonderful to actually see Mexico in, different parts of Australia and know, I know where that came from. And for my mom, particularly, like with every piece, like she will, look at this, for instance, and she'll say, that the roofs are painted by the grandfather. And, this part here, the outlines, the daughter does it. And, she'll know a story behind each piece, which is really special. Yeah. Yeah. Pretty cool.
It's also very, very persuasive from a selling point of view, isn't it?
That's
It's when you tell the story of the object. It's very true.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. Very often.
How did you end up in international then? I mean, obviously, you've got a bit of the wanderlust. And
China comes back into this, I guess. So before I was in international ed, I was actually in the fisheries industry, primary industries for the Queensland government. So I'd just gotten back from the big epic overseas adventure. And I went with a friend back to Griffith Uni because she wanted to do some further study. And I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. So I tagged along with her. We went and saw one of our, favorite professors and mentors. So she was having a chat with him. He goes, and Guie, what about you? What are you going to do? And I said, well, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I want to do further study. I think I might just try and find some work. And he goes, yeah, well, you've lived in Japan before. You speak Japanese from memory. Here. And he gave me this leaflet thing. He says, you should apply for it. It closes in 3 days. And I'm like, what is it? And it was a cadetship with the Queensland government, the now Trade Investment Queensland, which was known as Queensland Government Trade Investment Office back in the day. And they had this cadetship program with positions in Japan, in the UK, in China, and a couple of other places. And I looked at it and I had to find sponsors. I had to come up with an export plan for the fisheries industry in Queensland. And I'm like, God, this is just too overwhelming. I don't think I'll be able to do it. But that night I thought, well, yeah, I mean, it's great to be back in Australia, but yeah, it'd be great to be working in Japan. So that night I sat down, wrote a plan. The next day I drove to the Sunshine Coast and to the Gold Coast to try and find sponsors. I found some prawn aquaculture company that was happy to let me help them find some opportunities in Japan, and another company, fisheries company, again next to close to the Sunshine Coast. Wrote up the plan, sent it in, and I got in. So a few months later, after coming back, I was booted out again and went to live in Osaka. And so my thing was to try and help Queensland companies find good opportunities for their products, seafood products in Japan. And that was a fascinating time because my meeting attire was actually gumboots, because I'd have to go to these seafood markets at 2, 3 a.m., which is when the action is and all the trading is happening. And for me to speak to the people in charge and have a look at the produce, well, I had to be there at that time of day and dressed accordingly, right? So it was fascinating. I've visited some incredible fish markets all over Japan. But anyway, I'm deviating from the main story here, and that's in education. So whilst I was there, I took a 1-week holiday, which is called the Golden Week, typically in May, in Japan, and went across to China to visit a friend who also was doing a cadetship, but in Shanghai. And so I went to visit her, and during one of our nights out in Shanghai, I came across this incredible woman who was owning the dance floor, and she was there on a special scholarship for her Mandarin. And she at the time was the head of the Office of Higher Education for Queensland. We got on really well. And I returned to Japan. And eventually, once my cadetship came to a conclusion, I thought that maybe international trade wasn't really it for me. Went to South America for the first time as a Mexican. Went south to climb mountains in Peru. And spent time in Peru and Bolivia. And during this time, this person I'd met in Shanghai sent me an email and said, well, when you come home, when you're ready to come home, I've got a job that might interest you. And her words were, I think you've got the balls for it. And so I was like, ooh, okay, this sounds really interesting. So a few months later, when I did get back, I had some interviews lined up with mostly Japanese-related companies, and I had one good job opportunity with Mitsui. But I decided to go and check this balls for it job, and I loved the pitch that she gave me. And you will know this person very well. Her name is Nicole Brigg, a legend in the industry for sure. And so Nick said, I'm building this international team and for Education Queensland. So I'm going to move from the higher ed sector into the schools. We need to internationalize the schools, bring the world to Queensland and vice versa. I'm setting up this team. So I joined that team, and our job was to really try and identify public schools in Queensland from Atherton. And I was in Atherton visiting the school there, right through to Toowoomba, that I'm connected to now, and find all of these schools that were going to be able to host international students under this EQI program. And so we visited them, we accredited them, and we developed additional suites of programs to offer the world. And so that was how I got into international ed. And the rest is history, basically.
Holy smokes. There you go. Nicole Brigg's fault.
Nicole Breakford.
For those people listening along, because she's no longer in international, she'd stepped out from memory. She took on a role as a COO of a
Yes, she's
audiology
yeah,
company or
in
something
the
like
health sector, and
that.
kicking lots of goals in there as well. But yes, so she was instrumental in getting me into international ed, without a doubt. Yeah, she was fantastic.
That is super cool. That's super cool. I must reach out to Nicole because, she's an absolute legend,
Yeah,
and
she is.
people who know her will just be like, oh yes, and just one of those great people that a very straight shooter. I always really appreciate. Like you always knew where you stood
Absolutely.
with Nick. Where you stand with Nick, but also very generous and empowering. I found giving you
Very empowering. Yeah. And a lot of people that you will know that have worked with her, either Griffith or Macquarie, but an EQI. And one of my colleagues who still remains a wonderful friend is Sharon Martin. We're both part of that same era with EQI on their neck. So that, yeah. So she
How lucky are we, Gear? Like we've had this amazing opportunity to work for these legends of the Australian higher education landscape. I'm not saying that there's not legends there now. I mean, maybe we're becoming the legends, but like I just feel at those pivotal moments in our career, these huge people, that played this foundational role in what we now do, to have been part of like their stewardship is just incredible.
absolutely,
Mm.
absolutely. And that vision and that trust, as you said, empowering. And that's made all the difference. And, it's great to have good mentors. I've been very blessed that I've had that in my life, my professional life, and trying also to do the same, give back also to a lot of the up and coming leaders in the industry as well. It's so important. I have benefited so much professionally and especially personally from mentorship. Yeah.
What do you try and like if you've got junior staff members, for example, and you're looking to mentor and nurture them? What's the kind of main thing that you hope for them or you try to steer them to?
Very importantly, that they try and find out what really makes them tick, what they really enjoy. We all do work that we are not essential, but there's always going to be something there in the mix that keeps us going. That's that little spark in our day or our role. So I try and help them understand what it is that they're really good at or what they enjoy, and where I can try and steer them into that direction, and I'll do everything I can to create a pathway so that they can, nurture that a little bit more where I can. But I think also importantly, it's the attitude, Rob. I mean, we talked about how we deal with very complex situations. And, if I were to lose it because maybe the situation deserves it, that I just lose it for a bit. I'm not sure that that's something that I would like myself to see, in a boss. So I try and handle it the way that, maybe they can see this. It's going to be okay. We can handle it. Or just simply telling them, this is really hard. I'm not quite sure how we're going to deal with this. I'm struggling myself, but we're going to get through it. Okay, let's just put our thinking caps on and find a solution. So just kind of bringing that approach to things rather than the panic and the stress. I think that's a good way to mentor.
It's so true, isn't it? I think when times get tough, and once again, we've had some pretty tough times, in the last few years. And international aid always seems to like run into these like sailing along, boom, I'm falling a hole.
Yeah.
But just remembering that it's not about getting through everything in one big step. It's just incrementally working through what's within your control. Sometimes that's just one conversation with a stakeholder and one little project that you do, and step by step is how we build ourselves back up from tough times.
Yeah, it's those little things, as you said. I read a book not that long ago called Atomic Habits. And
Oh, okay, yeah, cool.
and it's really all about that, those tiny little incremental little things, that will add up to the end. Yeah.
That resonated for you?
Yeah, it resonated for me, for sure.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. It's like you don't get strong by going to the gym once and ding 6
Mm,
weights, and
yeah.
then think that you're going to end up with massive guns. Like it's just and literally this incremental process of every day you've got to do that one thing over and over. You've got to do your push-ups. If you don't do your push-ups, you're not going to get strong.
A little. That's right. That's right. So see, little smiles every day.
Little smiles. That's so good. It's so good. It's so true because I think, you know what, for me, that's that lady in Atherton. God, Atherton's coming
Yeah.
at the Atherton Tourist Bureau, that every time I suddenly catch myself, feeling down or under pressure, that's what comes to my mind. It's like, if I don't reset myself, then
This is
that's
me.
how I will become.
Right.
Yeah, this is how I will become. So
Yeah.
it's one or the other. So better the conscious choice to actively work on it, and makes you feel so much better.
Oh, yeah.
Look, there's a couple of doors that you've opened up for me as we've been talking, and I'm just trying to decide which one to choose. I mean, I'd be interested to hear about the Japanese degree. Let me throw it to you. I'm going to give you a choice of 3, and you can pick whichever one you want. So, degree in Japanese, like why and how that evolved, and living in Japan. The fisheries, and because when you're talking about the fisheries, I was thinking about the selling aspect of that. You have to push it so you're in a completely different cultural environment, and essentially you're pitching people. So that's really interesting. And South America. So you have a choice of 3 gear. Which door do you want to take?
Oh my goodness. Look, I'm happy to take on the Japanese one. When I arrived in Australia as a 12-year-old, I was really fascinated by the fact that kids here could learn Chinese, Japanese, German, French. We just didn't have that back in Mexico. It was, I guess, English. You would learn English if you had a choice. So I was like, wow, this is incredible. So when I started high school, I decided to do the three. So you get to choose, right? A bit of everything in grade 8. Then in grade 9, you then choose your subjects for junior high. And I chose the three: Japanese, German, and Japanese. Japanese, German, and Chinese, sorry. And
You did 3
I did
languages.
languages. And I was doing really well. I was happy, happy, happy. But when it came to then grade 10, the teacher said to me, you know what? You should really just choose two, you know, or one, but three is probably a bit much, and it'll be better for you for senior year if you have other things, not just languages. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I went for German and Japanese. I dropped the Chinese. I now kind of regret it, but not. It could come in very handy right now in the job. But, Japanese was all the rage there here in Australia, for sure. So I went with Japanese and German. When I had the chance to go on exchange to Japan, the Kobe earthquake happened, and that's where I was meant to go as part of the exchange program. And so that got cancelled, and I was so heartbroken about it. I then started uni. It was either that year in Japan or uni. So I went to uni and I was doing international business at Griffith. And I only did it because of the word international, okay? Actually, I was going to go for the UQ. It was called Business in Europe because it had a semester in Germany. But then Griffith offered me a scholarship, and I went with that. And it had international in the title. But it didn't have any kind of exchange abroad as part of the degree. And there were some international programs at Griffith, but nothing like they've got now. So I actually decided to find an opportunity for myself to spend time in Japan that I didn't get to do before. And that involved me taking a gap year and going there to work as an English teacher. But the payment for doing that in this little village in Japan was to also have Japanese lessons as part of their Japanese language school, which they also had. And I would get some room and board and some symbolic kind of wage. So I'm like, yep, that sounds like it for me. So I went and did that for that 1 year. And that's where I really got my Japanese going, by living and breathing it, and in regional Japan, not one of the big cities.
And so then that moment when it's 3 o'clock in the morning and you're in your gumboots in a fisheries market, and like obviously you've got the language under your belt, but that must have been intimidating to be a young person, like trying to make those connections, right?
It was intimidating. Yeah, and at the beginning, a male colleague from Japan, Japanese, would come with me because it was very male dominated. This trading happening, and all the big honchos they're all men, right? And I was in my mid-20s then, 25 or something like that. So probably in their eyes, who is this young girl talking to me, trying to do business with me? But after a while, I got really, really confident. So I then, did a lot of these trips and business meetings on my own, and did, quite well as well. So developed the first export handbook for fisheries for the Queensland companies, and delved into this incredible sea cucumber farming for the Sunshine Coast. I think it's still going on today. It was fun times. And look, it really was a growing up kind of experience, being faced by this, different culture, very male oriented. But that set me up to deal with other things later in life and in work as well. I know with EQI, I was sent to Korea. It was my first trip to Korea. And one of the agents there, he was the big agent and this formidable man, smoking. And he said to me, yeah, you have dinner with me and then we talk about the business. Okay. So I went to see him. He sat me down and he says, you eat Korean? I said, sure, I eat Korean. No problem. And so he brought this big live octopus on a platter, and someone proceeded to come and cut each tentacle. I could see the poor octopus just kind of looking at me. It was full. And I'm like, this is a test. This guy is just testing me. So he asked me to take a bite, so I did. And I just remember feeling the little suction pads going onto the roof of my mouth and my tongue. And I'm like, Guie, you have to do this. You have to do this. So I went through it, got some of the wine, the soju, swallowed it, and went for another one. We got a great deal that day.
I bet you did.
I'll never forget it. But I'm like, no, I have to prove this is a test. I can do this. I can totally do this. And I did. I'm so proud of that.
Oh, that's a spin out. So I'm just conscious of time. I would
Yes,
just like to
yes.
get this is where I'm like, oh, can we just have another hour? In all of those experiences, is there one thing that you've maybe it's a technique, maybe it's a mindset that allows you to step over that threshold in that situation? Maybe by way of example, I was recently at an event and it was with a group of an audience that I'm not like people who don't know me. And for me, my approach was like talking about the fact I do a YouTube channel because it's kind of unusual and different. And that for me, I discovered was what made people go, oh, and that opened the door and then put me at ease and put them at ease. But is there something that you like a technique or something that you've learned over the years which helps step over that threshold when you're in those uncomfortable situations?
Well, I did a bit of stand-up theater, and that on and off throughout my life. And there's been instances where, there's some very tricky situations, and I kind of, try and bring some of those learnings from the theater. And it's like, okay, yeah, just right now you're going to be this or that, and you deal with it. You're playing a character, a role, and just deal with it. You'll be fine. And that helps me, actually. Sometimes I apply some of that.
I think that's so on point. I completely agree with that. Like confidence isn't what we have inside us. It's in fact what we project.
What you project. And I mean, I had to, being told, okay, now you are a tomato or you're a potato, Can't get more degrading than that. So I'm like, everything goes. It's fine. I'll be fine.
Guie Hartney, this has been such a thrill for me. Thank you so much for
Thank
joining
you.
me
Thank you
on
for
Global
inviting
Horizons.
me. It's wonderful.
And you know what? You've opened up all these other doors. So at some point in the future, we're going to have to do a round two because there are so many other good stories to dig into, I'm sure. Over a glass of wine, if not
Maybe, or some Mexican mezcal, perhaps.
Mezcal, that's it.
Yes.
Thanks so much for joining me on the podcast.
Thank you, Rob. It's been a pleasure.
If you've enjoyed this episode of the Global Horizons podcast, consider subscribing to our newsletter. Search for Global Horizons podcast and then just pop in your email address, and that way you will never miss out on all of the critical international education news that you need to stay up to date with. This episode has been produced on Garigal land in Sydney. Our video and audio editor is Len Zamora, and I'm your host, Rob Malicki. Have an awesome day. See you in the next episode.